much for joining us today. You have tuned into Business Daily. I'm Geun in Seoul. Before we dig into our top stories today, let's first get a quick check of the day's highlights. Despite the country's long working hours, productivity and wages remain low here in Korea, leading to more poor quality jobs. Concerns are growing on the currency front as the Korean won faces a broader trend of weakening, which led to the first intervention by financial authorities in more than 4 years. We sit down with an expert to talk about this. A new report from the OECD shows that the average hourly wage that workers receive right here in Korea remains in the lower rank among the 33 member countries surveyed. Our Hwang Jae starts us off.
Roughly $14.50. That's how much the average Korean worker earns in an hour, which is only about half of what workers in Germany make. According to a job quality report by the OECD, Korea's purchasing power parity adjusted gross hourly earnings ranked 22nd, remaining in the lower tier among the 33 member countries. Topping the list were European countries like Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Switzerland, while Mexico sat at the bottom. The OECD's measure gauges how employment contributes to material living conditions, or in other words, workers' well-being, and how the earnings are distributed across the workforce. And experts attribute Korea's rather disappointing scorecard to long working hours coupled with low productivity. The OECD says Korean employees worked for around 2,100 hours on average in 2014, the world's second longest after Mexico, and well over the 1,300 hours German people spent at work that year. Experts add it's inevitable longer working hours will result in slipping productivity. They say local companies should stop insisting on their employees working extreme amounts of overtime. Hwang Jae, Business Daily.
Overseas card spending by Koreans surged to an all-time high last year, with more people traveling abroad. According to the Bank of Korea, card transactions outside of Korea totaled $13.26 billion last year, up 8.7% from the previous year. This includes purchases made by debit and direct payment cards and marks the slowest rate of on-year growth since 2012. The number of cards used overseas jumped 28% on year, which shows that Korean travelers cut down on their spending. The amount put on credit by foreign visitors in Korea plunged over 13% on year to just over $10 billion last year, largely due to the outbreak of the Middle East respiratory syndrome in May. Fears of a British exit from the European Union have pushed the pound to a 7-year low as the British Prime Minister clashed with the London Mayor in Parliament on Monday. Now, the bout is likely a sign of the heated debates to come, with exactly 4 months to go until the British public votes on whether to stay in or leave the EU. Our Kwon Jang-ho has this report.
British Prime Minister David Cameron and London Mayor Boris Johnson went head-to-head in the House of Commons on Monday.
Can I ask my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, to explain to the House and to the country in exactly what way this deal returns sovereignty over any field of lawmaking to these Houses of Parliament?
Because it carves us forever out of ever closer union. It means that the ratchet of the European Court taking power away from this country cannot happen in future.
The London Mayor sparked the confrontation by backing a British exit from the European Union on Sunday, less than a day after Cameron had encouraged Britain to remain, while also announcing the date for a referendum on the issue on June 23rd. About half of the ruling Conservative Party, of which the Mayor is a member, is reportedly ready to back a Brexit, in line with the British public opinion. With the prospect of that currently too close to call, 4 months of intense debate and campaigning is expected. Fears of a Brexit also hit the British currency. The pound dropped to a 7-year low against the US dollar on Monday, marking a 3% drop since the beginning of the year and making the pound the worst performing major currency of 2016 so far. Ratings agency Moody's also warned that Britain's strong credit score would be at risk if the public votes to leave the EU, saying the potential cost of leaving would outweigh the benefits. Kwon Jang-woo, Business Daily.
Let's now head over to Barcelona, where virtual reality devices and 5G networks have been taking center stage at the biggest mobile tech show of the year, the Mobile World Congress, which kicked off on Monday. Our Kim Ji-yeon takes us there.
Mobile is everything. This is the theme for this year's Mobile World Congress. It conveys that innovation in the mobile sector is reaching into our daily lives, and that there are very few things being created today that don't somehow have a mobile component to them, and this includes the virtual reality sector. This year's MWC has put the spotlight on VR devices, so it's no surprise the world's largest smartphone maker, Samsung Electronics, has its own VR experience corner. At Samsung's 4D Experience Center, visitors wait in a long line so they can take a virtual ride on a snow vehicle or roller coaster. Users put on their Gear VR headsets, which generate 360-degree images with every move and turn that's made. The Korean tech giant is eyeing the VR sector for growth, teaming up with Facebook for its VR contents. Still, the VR sector remains in its infant stage and needs more user-friendly VR devices and faster connectivity to produce higher resolutions. For that, companies like Korea-based SK Telecom have introduced a 5th-generation 5G network, an improved version from the current 4th-generation LTE network.
So more than 100 times rather than 4G network. So it should be. So for example, so if you download the HD movie parts, if you use the LTE network, so you can spend around 60 seconds or so around 1 minute. But if you use the 5G network, so within 1 second you can download it.
Another company that's providing 5G connectivity is US-based Qualcomm. They say their annual trip to Barcelona is a great business opportunity.
So we actually speak to operators and vendors from around the world throughout the year. But Mobile World Congress gives us a really great opportunity where we can have influential members from all these communities all in one place. It makes it easy for us to display all the great things we're working on all in one place, rather than have them travel around the world at different times.
SK Telecom and its local rival, KT Corporation, led discussions at the MWC to formulate a global standard platform for the 5th-generation network ahead of the 2018 Winter Olympics that will be hosted by South Korea's alpine town of Pyeongchang. The companies plan to provide full 5G services at sporting venues during the Games. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily, Barcelona.
Despite a slight uptick today, the recent slide of the Korean won to a near 6-year low is stoking concerns that this might just be the beginning of a bigger fall. Take a look.
It was a messy week for Korea's currency market last week, so much so that it prompted verbal intervention from the Bank of Korea. The Korean won closed at 1,234.4 won against the US dollar at market close on Friday, hitting the lowest level in nearly 6 years. With hopes of countering the rapid depreciation, Korea's financial authorities vowed to take all the necessary measures.
There's no change to our principle of taking measures to counter excessive fluctuations, and we will do everything necessary to do so.
Although the won's nosedive seems to have eased a bit this week, there are still lingering concerns over another potential plunge. Market analysts are forecasting the won will tumble below the 1,300 mark soon, despite the currency already shedding more than 5% since the beginning of the year. The won's recent slide is attributed to investors shifting to safer assets, such as the US dollar, amid China's economic slowdown, cheap oil prices, and potential rate hikes from the US.
And to tell us more about this, Professor Yang Jun-suk from the Catholic University of Korea joins us in the studio today. So good to see you, Professor.
Happy to be here.
All right, so there are mounting concerns over the won's recent tumble against the U.S. dollar. What's the reason behind this?
Okay, well, according to a lot of news reports, the sell-off was sparked by rumors that the Bank of Korea will lower its interest rate again during the first half of this year. Now, that generally represents some kind of view as Korea is in a very weak economic situation. So that's also playing into the picture. Another factor is that there's global flight to safety going on right now. So other currencies of major countries like the yen, the euro, has actually strengthened since the beginning of the year. And Korea is not yet considered a safe asset. So that's partially why the Korean won has been weakening.
Now, some could think that this weaker won could actually help boost exports because it would make Korean products cheaper overseas.
Well, a lot of economists and business people have been advocating that we depreciate the won further last year because our exports are not doing very well. But I think the case in Japan has shown us that even large depreciations don't have that much effect on increasing exports right now because the global economy is so bad. Now, this depreciation, when we talk about exports, this depreciation will not hurt us too much, but I'm not sure if it'll help us that much either.
So you're saying this is not all good news?
No.
All right. Well, financial authorities actually said in a statement on Monday that the $1 rate had been fluctuating too widely. What can we make out of this statement?
Okay, well, this has been something that's been happening since the Asian financial crisis. Ever since the Asian financial crisis, when we liberalized the foreign exchange market, the volatility has been very large, and it has been even larger than other countries. Now, that's partially the effect of some special situation for Korea. We have a very open financial market, but we're not quite considered a safe asset, but we're not considered a dangerous asset either. So whenever the global economy becomes bad, money flows out of the market, and whenever the global economy seems good, money flows into the markets. That accounts for a lot of the volatility.
All right, I know just last week we talked about how the U.S. claims Korea to be one of the currency manipulating countries. Now, considering the recent developments in the currency, Korean won, do you think this will actually help dispel some of those concerns from the U.S.?
I think so. This depreciation of the won is completely driven by the market.
Right.
So even though United States don't want the won to depreciate any further, they can't really complain about this one. In fact, the Korean government is thinking about using its foreign exchange reserves to strengthen the Korean won. So in that sense, we're using method that the United States doesn't like in order to do something that the United States will like.
Okay. All right. Well, there's also speculation that the won might tumble below the 1,300 won mark within this year. What are your thoughts on this forecast?
Okay, I think it's unlikely but possible. I don't think 1,300 is a level that will last very long. I don't think that's going to be an equilibrium level. But if the global instability, global uncertainty continues, then there's a chance that it may hit the 1,300 very slightly, for a very short time. I wouldn't rule out of it, but it's more to do with psychological factors than economic factors, I think. So it will not be an equilibrium rate.
So you think it will reach its mark, but it won't stay that long?
If it does go down to 1,300, if this global situation becomes somewhat better, then it won't hit 1,300 at all. But if the global situation continues this way and there's one or two more bad news, then I wouldn't eliminate the possibility, but I think it's very unlikely right now, but I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility.
All right. So the won has been volatile for a while, but do you think the Bank of Korea might take actions over this, perhaps adjusting the key rate?
Okay, well, they've been what we call jawboning. They've been saying that if this gets any worse or this gets any more unstable, then they would come in and try to make it more stable. But so far, they're job owning, so they're not putting any real money into the picture. But this is what usually the governments and central banks do at the beginning. They want to see if the market can be corrected with just words, because then they don't have to put any real money or real assets behind their policy moves.
So to prevent further damage from these recent currency fluctuations, what do you think the Korean government should do?
Okay, well, I think what's most important is policy stability right now. These instabilities can be worsened by various instabilities in the political side or economic side. We can't really do something about the economic side, but political side, usually we can do something about it, but right now it's pre-elections. National Assembly is having a lot of trouble.
Right.
So that's actually very unfortunate. In the longer term, well, Korea has put in some prudential macroeconomic policies in order to try to reduce the instability in the market. That seems to be working, but not very effectively. So we may look at trying to strengthen some of those policies. If worst comes to worst, we may have to re-examine whether we want a completely open short-term capital market. Since a lot of this volatility is driven by short-term movements in capital, we may actually want to try to limit that, but that's going to be a major decision, and we need to observe the situation further.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today, Professor.
Thank you.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Until then, goodbye.